Some may find the following disturbing. Discretion is advised.
The Bears.
Because of the way they play the nickel corner here, and the nickel corner plays 88, 85% of the snaps. He's got to be like part linebacker.
The Bears.
When you're in a scouting room, there's going to be differences of opinion.
The Bears.
Once coaches get involved, of course, they've got their own opinions about what fits best for what they want to do, and that could be drastically different than what the scouts say.
Well, you're looking at traits, and number one, he tested very, very well.
The Bears.
One thing good about Kevin, he's been with 2 other organizations, as well as being the commissioner of the Big Ten. He's been around.
The Bears.
With Greg Olson, Jerry didn't want to get rid of him. I didn't want to get rid of him. Nobody wanted to get rid of him. One guy wanted to get rid of him, Mike Martz, because Mike Martz didn't know what the hell to do with him. We tried to talk Lovey out of hiring Mike Martz for a month and a half. He's playing zone, but number one, he doesn't get enough depth with the drop. But
Right.
who the hell's going? How many times does a 305, 310-pound defensive tackle drop into coverage, especially in a key situation?
The Bears.
Greg, why are teams wrong on quarterback evaluation so often?
Number one, it's a hard position to evaluate. There's probably not as many real good quarterback evaluators as there needs to be.
The Bears. The Bears. The Bears.
Welcome, everyone, to a fresh edition of GTF, Gabriel Talks Football. My name is Aldo Gandia. We've got a heavy-duty week of programming, including the return of Draft on Tap with Danny Shimon. That will be Wednesday. Tooch and I will be here tomorrow night to have some laughs and talk about the Chicago Bears. Mac and Reed on Thursday. All week long, we've got programming. Best way to stay on top of it is subscribe to the YouTube channel here on YouTube, and also you can subscribe on all of our audio podcast platforms, and you can receive the audio version of these shows on your device. Let's welcome the man of the hour. His name is Greg Gabriel. Greg, how are you, my friend?
I'm a little under the weather today, but I'm okay.
Oh, what's going on?
Well, I don't know if it's after effects from the COVID I had or what, but I just, real stuffy, tired.
Yeah.
I sent my doctor a note this morning at about 7:30. I haven't heard back yet. So, when I hear, I hear.
Yeah. Your image today is bouncing around. And doing all
I
sorts
just
of cool
saw that,
things.
and it was fine before. I mean, we go like that and see.
There you go. That's better. It's asking you to sit up straight. That's probably it. Well, I hope you feel better real quick, because this is an important time of the year. We need you on 100%.
No, hey, this is for a scout or evaluator. This is the best time of the year.
It really is.
Doing that again. I wonder why the hell that's going on.
Yeah.
I mean, nothing's moving.
Yeah, it seems like tighten up all your cables there to your computer, because it almost feels like it's a loose cable or something.
Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah.
Take this out.
Uh-oh, he's taking something out, guys. Close your eyes.
I don't know.
All right, I think it's gone. Whatever you did, we have success. Welcome, Mr. Shorty, Sports Chicago Style, Tooch, Eric, lots of people in the chat. Over 130 watching on all our platforms, and more coming in, 133, 137. People are rushing in. It looks like whatever the problem was, Greg, it is solved.
I had my phone thing plugged in, and it might have been that.
It could have been that indeed. Sometimes it's when wires cross over one another too. It creates some electrical bajumba. I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. Greg, I took a look at your tweets before the show, and you had some interesting ones here. I want to share with you and the audience this one. It says, you tweeted out or posted, "I'll be honest, I don't care who they take at 10. At that point of this draft, they are all the same player. That said, history with Pose shows he has a way of doing things. Part of it is that either a private workout or watching the player work at his pro day. And then another one just a little later, it may mean nothing, but was there a Bears decision maker at LSU? No. How about Boise? No. The two main decision makers were at Ohio State. Unless the Bears do a private workout with Campbell and or Genty, they aren't in the equation. Please tell us more.
Well, I'm just going on past history. And in fact, the oddity is the Bears sent their assistant line coach to LSU because you saw the workout was on the SEC network, so you saw the whole thing, and he was the guy who was pretty much running the offensive line workout, and Campbell was nowhere to be seen. Might have been on the sideline somewhere, but he didn't work out. Why, I don't know. And then at Boise, again, I don't know who was there from the Bears. It might have been a scout, but he doesn't do anything. He just does position drills, which he did real well if you saw the video of it. But no 40, no vertical, no long jump, 3-cone, 20 shuttle, all that stuff. He just didn't do it. Now, all this stuff is agent driven. I get that. But at certain positions, I'm not going to say it's a must that you have it, but it's a 90% must that you have it. Because you need it for part of it is comparison's sake. You know what you want to know exactly what you're buying when you're making a pick. And, you know, fans will say, oh, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Look how great he was in college. Well, those guys aren't making decisions, and their job isn't on the line by making that decision. So you want all the information that you can possibly get so that you make an intelligent decision on a player. So when a player opts out, that's stuff that you just don't have info on. Now, they can go back and do private workouts. Somebody asked me this morning, can they ask him to run a 40? And I said, yeah, they can ask him. That doesn't mean the guy's going to do it. But if he refuses to do it, that leaves a sour taste in the team's mouth. But you can ask a player to do anything you want at a private workout. There's nobody there but the team and the kid. So generally speaking, they're mostly positional drills, but before that, you do a lot of board work because you want to know how quickly the player can pick up things. And at some positions, it's more important than others. But the other guy that was confusing, the tight end from Penn State, Warren, does nothing at the combine, and then goes at the Penn State workout, does nothing. And it's like, why? I mean, and especially at that position, you got to have some basis of comparison, especially if you're going to take him in the top 10, top 12. You don't know how fast he is. You don't know how high he can jump. All you're doing is guessing based on what you see on film. I see film and I see, excuse me, I see 4.65. Maybe he's a step faster. Maybe he's not. But why can't he show everybody?
That is the $64,000 question, to use a reference to an old TV show. Yeah, I don't remember, but I read about it.
Are you that young?
I would like to think so, but I'm probably not. But like you said, it could be the agent. Now, could the agent and a team like the Chicago Bears be in cahoots in terms of this is what we're going to do? We know you're interested in this player. You talked to Genty, for instance, at the combine. Eric Bieniemy had a long talk with him. We know that there's interest here. So here's what we are going to do. Does that happen?
Well, theoretically, it can happen, but also theoretically, he's going to want to go a lot higher. The money's a lot different. Look at the money it saves. Everybody and their mama's got them pegged to the Raiders at 5. The difference between 5 and 10 is huge in the payroll structure.
Right.
Millions and millions and millions of dollars. So, I would think, now, if the Raiders told him don't do anything, we're going to take it at 5 no matter what, that's a different story. But with the Bears at 10, there's too many teams in front of them.
Yeah. Indeed. I'm collecting questions. Those of you in the YouTube chat, keep firing away. I got one from Anthony. Let me share this one from Tim first, because this was a big point of discussion on Friday's show regarding arm measurement. And Will Campbell's arm measurement was, I don't know, a quarter of an inch or so longer.
It was 33 even at the pro day last spring. Actually, at the pro day, but they weigh and measure the underclassmen. It was 32 and 7/8. At the combine, it was 32 and 5/8.
So Tim's question is, do teams disregard the pro day measurements and go with the combine?
Yes.
How does that work? Why
Yes.
is that?
Because it's as I've said probably 50 times on this show, it's excuse my language, the most fucked up measurement we have. Easy to make a mistake. Okay, it's where you start the measurement. The finish of the measurement's easy. Stretch your hand out. You're supposed to measure from the AC joint to the tip of the middle finger. Okay, the AC joint with me, I got a little hole there because I had surgery, so I know where mine is. But it's right about in this area here. So if you're off by a half inch, the arm length is off by a half inch. And a lot of times, the guy who's doing the measuring, especially in the spring at when he's doing a junior, he's just doing it real fast. He's not taking his time. Now at the combine, they're real, what's the word I want?
Specific?
Well, specific. They take their time.
Precise.
Mark Sadowski did it for about 7 or 8 years. He worked for us when he was doing it. He's with the Steelers now. And Mark, by trade, is an engineer. Has an engineering degree from Tulane. He's very meticulous about everything. And that's the word I was trying to think of a second ago. And so, like for the hand measurement, he made this like machine or box up to make sure that the hand measurement is right. And give you a perfect example. Jalen Milroe, the Alabama quarterback, goes to the Senior Bowl and they measure his hand at 8 5/8. And then he goes to the combine and it's 9 1/2. Now, how in 6 weeks can your hand grow an inch? Besides, it can't. That's totally impossible. They screwed up the measurement at the Senior Bowl, which is very common. I think you've seen it. Although you look at the different measurements that you get, they're always different.
Yep.
And so you have to find one that's concise, and the one that's concise is the combine because of the way they do it. The same person does it with every person. They do it the exact same way. And so, at least for basis of comparison, that's the fallback. And so, you're not going to say, oh, he's got 33-inch arms now. How does his arms grow? Your arms don't grow. Your height can change from day to day based on what time of the day that you got measured. And sometimes there's a half an inch, maybe even 5/8 of an inch difference in a guy's height. Obviously, there's a weight change literally every day by a pound or two, one way or the other. So you want current. Nobody cares about the height. You get the height for the combine, but you want current weight. What's the guy working out at? Another perfect example would be Leonard Floyd. Back then they changed, and really this is the main reason they changed it. Let's say a position group gets into Indianapolis on a Tuesday. That's the report day. Wednesday was their medical. And before they even did the medical, they did the weigh and measure. And that was in an auditorium in front of all the scouts and decision makers and stuff. And then the rest of the day, they were just doing medical stuff. Floyd gets in there, generally a 230-pound guy, 228-pound guy, and he comes in and he weighs 242. And it's like everybody, what? All he did was drink water, and drink more water, and then peed it out like right after. Now, but here's the key. 3 weeks later, he does his pro day at the University of Georgia. Guess what he weighed? 230.
Forgot to drink water.
Well, no, but that's what he worked out at.
Yeah, I get you.
at 230 pounds. So now what they do at the combine to alleviate that, they don't weigh and measure you until you right before you go on the floor to do your workout. So you're getting what the guy's workout weight is.
Lots of good stuff there. Questions are pouring in, so let me get to some of these. BT9, Bear Truth 9, has a question. How much value would a player like Genty in a good running back class have to be for Greg to feel good about passing a trench player and drafting Genty? And does Greg see that value difference? A little hard for you to say because you don't know who's available.
Well, number one, I don't think he's going to be there. So I
Tell
think
us
it's a
why.
moot point. Everybody and their mama's got the Raiders taking them, but that doesn't mean it's going to happen.
Right.
But there's no question the guy's a good player.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there's any way that he gets to 10. On top of that, this is the most loaded running back class in years, where you're going to get good running backs on day 3. And so why, when you got other needs, and here's one of the, not again, it gets down to philosophy. And 20 years ago we drafted Sed Benson, and the philosophy of drafting was totally different than it is now. And that interference is coming back.
It is back, and it's back big time. It's weird when you shift your seat, it either goes away or it reduces.
I don't know.
You got something plugged to your butt.
I don't know what the hell's going on. Anyway, I lost my train of thought. So the running backs had a value 20 years ago, and you weren't thinking of them as one contract players, but on top of that, they weren't making the money that players are right now. Then, and it wasn't too long after that, there's only one other time when you had more than one guy go in the top 10 at the running back position. Then, the evaluation of the position began, and teams just stopped taking them and were really laughing at teams that did, because why are you taking a one contract player? And that's the main thing. The majority of them are one contract players, and the ones that do get a second contract rarely play out the full second contract. Yeah, there's going to be an exception. You could say, well, what about so-and-so? But you compare that to an offensive lineman or a defensive lineman, where most of them, just look at the money they're getting in free agency. And those are all like second contracts, or if they get extended. So it's the value of the position. And you want a position, especially in the first round, you want a position that you can potentially have a guy for 8 to 10 years, not a 4-year contract, especially at that position. Short shelf life, when their legs start to go, they're done. And it just takes one hit for their legs to start to go. And I don't mean an injury, it's just the wear and tear on the body. Now, you look at a guy like Genty, the guy's, he's short, but he's really built. He's put together. Yeah. But look at all the carries, the touches between receptions and carries he's had already. Mm-hmm. There's so many carries in that body that you can take. And that's the same. Okay, so you can use a guy like, say, like Henderson from Ohio State. He's probably got half the touches in college that Genty's got. Mm-hmm. So who'd you rather have? Now, I get Genty's value, but you got to be looking forward, not looking back. And I'm not saying what I do or what I wouldn't do, and I'm just trying to create the tone of the argument, so to speak, of what, when you start talking about it, what's talked about.
Right. I'm pausing here because my beautiful wife is delivering me a fresh cup of coffee.
Hey, good for you.
She's the best. She's the absolute best. And she reminds me of that from time to time. Okay.
You better say it back, too.
Absolutely. You mentioned Genty's body. Boy, I was actually trying to bring up the photograph of his body. That was a sculptor's dream. That guy is built like an Adonis. That lower half, those thighs and calf muscles, built to withstand punishment, and it was very, very impressive. I remember back in the Senior Bowl days when they used to have all of the athletes on a stage with 500 people watching them go through the measurements, arm length, all this stuff. That doesn't happen anymore because the players didn't particularly like it. But back when you were coach, that happened. And when you looked at a player's body like that, how much did that have a sway over how you evaluate a player built for endurance?
It doesn't have any sway. You want to see the body because you want to, for lack of a better way of saying this, how much work has the guy done to take care of his body? Okay, perfect example. Tom Brady. He got up on the stage at the East-West game, and it was at the Hyatt Hotel in downtown, and everybody laughed. And I'm not lying. It was like, what the hell has this guy ever done in his life? It was like the next time he walks into the weight room, maybe the first time. And so he had like no muscle. And you look at him now, it's an entirely different body because he learned how to work out. But part of it is that. So you want to see, on a big guy, is he going to be able to get bigger, or is he already too big? So you're looking at the frame, you look at the width of the shoulders, his arm length. On an offensive lineman, you want to see a guy, especially an interior offensive lineman, you want to see him have big ass, big butt. So that helps him anchor. That's where the power comes from. So, excuse me, I'm going to be coughing all day, guys.
It's okay.
But it's, you don't want a tall, slender guy playing on the offensive line for you. So seeing those things is important. Now, you see something, you make a school call, you're watching the guy practice. Now you're seeing him in pads, but at least you're getting some sort of idea of what he is.
Good stuff. All right. Let us move on to another question because they're really piling up today, Greg. Vizzo wants to know, what do you see as the biggest glaring need that the Chicago Bears currently have on their roster?
Depth,
especially in the trenches, don't you think?
Yeah, I think their starting five is pretty much set, except for left tackle, it's going to be one or the other. It's going to be Braxton or it's going to be Amagaji. I'm saying that. I could be totally wrong, but I know that the feeling in the building is they like both of these guys, and they spent a third-round pick on Amagaji last year.
Right.
And people are ready to throw him out the door, and it's just not fair. Okay, so, given the circumstances that he had, he would have been better off not playing at all, being that he had no camp, and then you wouldn't have the negative bias from the fan base that you have right now. But I think they still got to take at least one offensive lineman, be it a guard or a tackle, or perhaps a swing guy. And I think you need two defensive linemen, an interior guy and an edge. And then after that, maybe you need safeties. They know more than we know because they know the health of Brisker, say, and they want more speed at linebacker, so wouldn't be surprised to get a linebacker. But, you can get some of these guys later, but you can say later, but they don't have picks. That's why I keep saying it just, in this draft, the way the boards are going to set up, and no two boards are going to be even close to, usually no two boards are alike. This year, I think they're going to be so out of whack with one another. I had a tweet this morning. I said, you're going to find out on draft day that most of the mock drafts were like way out in left field.
Yeah.
And it's not that these people don't know what they're doing. It's that it's a crazy year in that after the first few guys, your next big, huge group is the same player as far as talent-wise. And so now, okay, you might pick for need, or you might have somebody rated a little bit higher. Like, really, a couple of really good players when the Bears pick, if they stay at 10, could be a defensive back. If you argue that's the best player on our board, but who's to say their board's going to look like that, because every board is different. But it's also a position that is probably the strongest depth position on the team. So, why would they go in that direction? And what I'm trying to do is just point out, like, these are the kinds of conversations that you have. Draft meetings for most clubs will start next Monday. So, and these are the kind of topics that you talk about during these meetings. You line up, you go through every player by position, you do by position, and then when you're done by position, you start stacking them best to worst, and you develop then a strategy. But these are the types of discussions or things that you're talking about during these meetings. And you've got, 2.5 weeks to talk this out before the draft starts.
Greg, in those draft meetings, the ones that you've been a part of, and you've come to players who are graded pretty much the same, and one is a defensive back and one is an offensive lineman on the board, do you then move the offensive lineman a little higher than the defensive back, given that the need is bigger on offensive line, or whatever position is in greater need? Would you favor that one in the event that there's a tie with players?
Well, it's kind of easy. When I was with the Giants, we had, now when I started with the Giants, the draft was 12 rounds. So that's how long ago it was. But we had 12 columns. And at that time, too, there was only 28 teams. So 12 columns of 28 ranked best to worst, so to speak, or top to bottom. And that's how you would do it. You'd say, okay, who would you take, this guy over this guy or whatever? But still on draft day, you're going to lean towards a position you need at the same grade. When I was with the Bears, we never did that. Our board was by position. We had what we called a hot list. We had A players, B players, and C players. And they were grouped by position. And then you would, we had talked that out during the year. If you might, where his card is situated, even though it's not one on top of the other, where his card is situated on the board, it may be slightly higher. Say a running back might be slightly higher than an offensive lineman. So theoretically, that guy may be the better guy, but you're going into the draft with a plan. Remember, I said this last year. I said the draft meetings are like game prep during the game week prep, as you're putting together your game plan, but you have 3 weeks to do it instead of like 4 days. And then the draft is when you execute the plan that you put together in the previous 3 weeks. So there's areas of need that you want to fill. And so you're going to try to do that. And people say, well, you got to take the best player available. Well, and I always come back with this: best player available according to who? Because you could just look at the difference between Dane Brugler, and by the way, people, Dane Brugler will be on here 2 weeks from today.
Yeehaw!
And but he's gonna come on at 11:30, so we may start a little later. You look at the difference between, say, Dane Brugler's top 50, Daniel Jeremiah's top 50, and Mel Kiper's top 50. Now, a lot of those players may be the same, but they're not lined up the same. Well, that's the same as every other team. So who's to say so-and-so, when your team gets to pick and they take somebody you don't like and say, well, they didn't take the best player. Well, the best player according to who?
Exactly. I've had this argument with Danny Shinman because we do shows during the draft, and he gets upset that Poles picked this guy, and I'm like, but he's picking the best player on his board, Danny, not your board. And we go back and forth and stuff on that.
Which is exactly, it's 100% right. Yeah. And they've got, and look, it's not one guy's opinion. It's a collective opinion. The whole staff is putting the board together. Yeah. And the difference between the February meetings and the meetings now that'll start next week is that the coaches are involved now. The coaches weren't involved in February.
Mm-hmm.
But now they've had a couple months to watch tape, go to workouts, do Zoom meetings, and I'll tell you, they do Zoom meetings left and right now. If there's one good thing about COVID, it was learning how to use Zoom, and that you didn't have to go visit a guy to have a nice chat with them. You could do like you and I are doing right now.
Right. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Boy, we got great people, great questions here. I want to get to this one because Anthony has asked it 3 times already. So I want to make sure I get this one in. What are your thoughts on SMU running back Brashard Smith? He can play both that wide receiver and running back position. Have you had a chance to look at his tape? And if so, can you share your thoughts on him?
He's a running back. And SMU figured that out. He was not used a lot as a receiver. He's like a backup receiver at Miami, and their main kickoff guy. He's a very, very kickoff returner. So SMU puts him a running back because now if you go back and you look at Miami tape, he was used a lot on bubble screens, reverses, things like that. And with the ball in his hand, he's good. He's got elusiveness. He's got strength. For a guy that's only like 196, 197 pounds, he runs with some power. Mm-hmm. I think he's a day 2 guy. Wow. The one thing I don't think, now he ran 4.39 at the combine. I don't see 4.39 game speed.
Okay.
There's a couple times when you see him get caught. And in fact, Lance Zernheld, who we had on a few weeks ago, in his report, he says that you see him get caught. So either he doesn't have the sustained speed, he's got that initial burst, but there's times, and when he gets caught, it's not like he's caught 10 yards down the field. They're catching him 40 yards down the field. So he, like you can see there, he's got speed.
Right.
The other guy had the angle, he got him, but that guy had a really good angle. But you see that more often than not. And so, his play, I would suggest his play speed's probably in the high 4.4s and not 4.39, but the guy's a hell of a player. I really like him.
Yeah, I like him too. And he's not afraid of contact, as you said. Interesting. Now, everybody loves the work by Matt Bowen. I know you've complimented him a number of times. He, on an ESPN article, thinks that the kid from Iowa State, Caleb Johnson, would be a good fit for the Chicago Bears because of what he can do pass catching and would just be a good compliment to Swift and the rest of the running back room. What are your thoughts?
I think before the combine, most people had him as RB2.
Right.
And then he didn't run as well as expected. And so now he's dropped. Where do you see him get caught? He plays fast.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I think he's a great fit. But there are so many good backs. I can't really sit down and figure out who they actually want. Johnson seems to gravitate towards speed. So that would say he might not be in the equation. But I don't know that for sure. Like they spent a lot of time with the Texas running back who ran like a 4.3 or 4.29 or something at his pro day. And I haven't done anything on that guy, but he can run. And, the SMU kid, he can run. And not only can you use him as a running back, you can put him out as a slot receiver too. So it's going to be, I just from what I've seen from Johnson, he reminds me a little bit of Andy Reid, and that Andy would find something special about a player that he said, if I have this guy, this is what I can do with him.
Interesting.
And so, and then they would take, and the one example was there only one running back that they've taken in the first round. They took him with the 30th pick and they got rid of him this year. Little guy from LSU, was only about a 5'8", 5'7" guy. But it was because they took him because Andy thought he could do a lot with him. even though he wasn't going to be a full every down back.
I'm sorry. I just got to tell people that there's somebody in making believe, impersonating me. Aldo Gandia says, I could see another Valence Jones in the third round. I love polls. Yeah. Okay, that is not me, and Warthog knows it. He says, Aldo, you Aldo, are going to get blocked for not knowing football. All right, I know a little bit about football. We're not going to draft the Valence Jones in the third round. I'm pretty sure of that. All right, so let us get back to the business at hand. Greg, you said something that really caught my attention, and it's something I've been actually meaning to ask you for years now. When you say that a player doesn't run as fast on the football field as he did on his 40, or vice versa, sometimes a player runs faster on the football field than not. What is the cause of that? Are there some gamma rays coming down from the sun, or that causes that? What's going on?
Okay, one of the perfect examples was Jerry Rice. Jerry Rice ran in the mid. I think Jerry Angelo got him in about the best time, which I think was like 4.52, 4.53 on a private workout back in 1984. And a lot of people had him up closer towards 4.6, but Jerry went in and worked him out by himself. And I mean, that's not a blazer. That's decent speed. In today's standards, it's almost slow for a wide receiver. But when's the last time you ever saw Jerry Rice get caught?
Yep.
He never got caught.
That's right.
And so, so he was like, okay, he's 4.52 when he's running in shorts, and he's 4.52 when he's got all his pads on. In other words, he can handle carrying that extra weight from the pads and not lose any speed over it. And there's some guys that do it really well, and there's others that extra weight slows them down.
Mm-hmm. Boy, again, so many great questions here. I wish I could pick them in some kind of order but I'm just going to hodgepodge this, so I apologize to people. People are also making jokes about the static that you're getting. JC1 says, Greg, do you have a plate in your head or anything that's causing that visual static that we're seeing?
No, it's fine. I'm looking at it now. It's fine.
Yeah, it's perfect. But Sports Chicago Style has a plausible explanation. He says it could be just a faulty cable.
Yeah, but I do have the maybe if I just go on Wi-Fi and unplug the cable.
Could be, yeah. Let's see what happens here. In which case, if we lose Greg,
now we're strictly Wi-Fi.
Okay, we'll see how that works. All right, Chris Watts wants to know, what's your view on the 400-plus nose tackle from Florida? And I'm forgetting his name.
Yeah, I don't remember his name either. You can call him Big Guy.
Yeah, let's call him Big Guy. I'll look a little.
I guarantee he's a seat smasher. So I don't. I mean, like, that would be a guy when we were drafting for Lovey's scheme, he wouldn't be on the board.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because he's a 3-4 nose tackle.
Desmond Watson, 464 pounds on his pro day.
You know what's funny is that I watched him run the 40. The first 10 to 15 yards isn't bad.
Wow.
And then the piano gets on his back.
A big grand piano, I bet.
But he's a big guy. He's a space eater. He can occupy blocks. I don't see him as a fit. I don't know this scheme that well yet. I think we got to see exactly how they run it. But I just can't see him playing in this scheme. He just doesn't have enough quickness or explosiveness. But, if a team is more of a 3-4 base team and you want a big guy like that on the nose, go ahead, because he's going to stuff up the middle of the line for sure.
Interesting. Mike Ibsen says, Greg, I've been watching tape of Jared Verse against Will Campbell from a 2023 game. I think Campbell has great feet and ability to re-anchor. In a 30 visit, would you make them go one-on-one against one of the DEs?
You're not allowed to work out a guy on a visit.
Okay. So is there any way, anything that the Bears can do to kind of confirm what they have seen on tape when it comes down to this situation?
Well, you can't on a workout. If they're going to work them out, they have to do it in two places: his hometown, wherever that is, or LSU. So there's too many people. I got a bunch of questions on X last week. Well, they can set up the private workout when he comes in for the 30 visit. So no, you can't. And that's a big misconception. 30 visits are strictly visits. It's a get to know you, sit down. You got hours versus 20 minutes at the combine to talk to a guy. If the guy has a medical situation that you want to check, you're going to have him downstairs to see your trainer for a few minutes. He's going to talk to the position coach. You talk to the head coach. You'll talk to Poles. Talk to the coordinator. It's a get to know you. Now, if a visit is a local kid, and Notre Dame is considered a local school for the Chicago Bears, Notre Dame, Northern Illinois, Northwestern, and there's one other one, and it's not Illinois. Illinois belongs to the Colts. But those guys, any of those guys can come in and work out on a visit, and they don't count against the 30 visit. They're just counted as local players. Mm-hmm. And you can have as many local players in as you want. And you can have them in 10 times if you want. We're a 30 visit guy you can bring in one time.
Okay.
So, but when you bring them in, you're not allowed to do anything with them. Now, we took that Garrett Wolf years ago out of Northern Illinois, but he was local because he was from downtown Chicago. And hell, the coaches worked him out. Ron Turner and Tim Spencer worked him out for a good hour in the Payton Center.
Wow. He was a dynamite little player. Unfortunately, his.
You know what pisses me off about that?
No, what?
They had to have him.
Oh, really?
Spencer and Turner. Oh, we got to have this guy. We got to have this guy. So then, okay, we stretched a little to get him, make them happy. And they never fucking used him. Mm. It was like, wait a minute. You guys said this is what you can do. This one. This is what you got to do. You're not using them.
Greg, from a couple of the stories that you've shared, it sounds like when you were director of pro scouting and you and Jerry Angelo, the then general manager, bent over a little backwards to appease, maybe appease is not the best word, but to go along with coach's requests. I know you didn't with Lance Briggs. He was on the roster and Lovey says, I don't know about this guy. And you guys said he can play, he can run. Don't worry about that. But with some other players like Wolf, and you talked a little bit about Benson, that Lovey really wanted him. And so
and don't forget, I mean, where we took him at that time, he was the second of three running backs that went in the top 5. Different world.
Absolutely.
Okay, and said Benson's career at Texas was unfreaking believable. I mean, he was a good running back.
Yeah. But I understand what you're saying. Running backs were different.
If the coaches had a love affair, you try to get the guy for him, but you also said, but we're getting him where you're supposed to get him. We're not going to jump up 2 rounds just because you got a love affair.
Yeah.
So yeah, you do that. You got to at the same time, and I've said this a lot. You can't ever take a player the coaches don't want.
Yeah, right.
That player will fail.
Greg, we've got a couple of questions here and people discussing things in the chat room about trading back. How difficult do you think it will be for an NFL team to trade back in the first round of the NFL draft, given that we're hearing that, so many players are graded evenly from 10 to 50, whatever the number is. It makes it kind of difficult to trade back, doesn't it?
You know what? I mean, on the outside, that makes sense.
Right.
My way of thinking is that's going to lead to more trades
Really?
because you're going to want a specific player. And okay, like where the Bears are picking, there might not be any DBs off the board yet. And there may be somebody behind them that wants their pick of the litter of the DBs. And so they got somebody in mind. So when you got somebody in mind, you'll move up to get them. You just don't want to have to give up too much.
Gotcha. Interesting. All right, let's go to another question here. Levante is asking, Greg, do you project a big-time player to fall out of the first round this year? That's a great question.
Well, the day after the draft, if we do a show, the day after the first round, that'll be a good question to answer.
Yeah.
I mean, who knows? There's going to be guys go in the first round that some didn't expect.
Right.
And vice versa. So, and especially in this draft. So yeah, who the hell knows? You know how I always say there's guys are like 20 to 40 guys. Well, this year it's like 15 to 50. Where
Wow.
and so if they win a 25 or 45, it wouldn't surprise you. So it's just that kind of draft because you look at them and you're watching the tape and you're going, I like him. He's pretty good. He could really help us. But, you like him because of his skill set and you'd want him. So why not take him because there's not another guy at another position is that say head and shoulders better than him. You might have three guys from three different positions. When you look at them, they're all basically the same talent level wise, just at a different position. Turned off your mic, buddy.
Oops, sorry. Yeah, interesting thing about that question is, again, as you've been saying, Greg, is what's your definition of a big name, right? Some team's big name could be some other teams, I don't even have them on the board player. Isn't that correct?
Well, where you really see that is on day 3.
Yeah.
There'll be teams, you're sitting there and you're listening to every pick come off and, the Colts take player X and you got him as a free agent.
Right.
And that happens all the time.
Yep.
And you could take a guy that they have as a free agent. It's just how you see the player play within your scheme and that, everybody, I've said this a lot and this year it's probably more true than any other year. You could put 5 scouts in the same room, put on the same tape to look at the same player, and you're going to get 5 different opinions.
Outstanding. Yep, absolutely. All right, so I pulled up Tankathon's big board, just a random website, and this is their big board. I'm going to scroll down some of these names, Greg, and you tell me that's a great possibility of some guy who could fall to the second round. So obviously Hunter, Carter, Graham, those are Genty, potentially, right, are obvious first-round picks. Will
Right.
Campbell, Membu, McMillan, the wide receiver, obvious. Now, here's a name that could fall to the second round. Shadur Sanders, the quarterback. Would you agree with that?
No, I think quarterbacks have that special value is that I got to get one because I don't have one.
Okay.
And so you're going to see him drafted. And I think Jackson Dart's going to go in the first round too. And,
wow.
So I think there'll be 3 that go. But, the one guy I'm interested in to see where he ends up going, because I just can't see him as a high pick. But a lot of the analysts got is that Shamar Stewart.
Right.
Because I say he's got all the athleticism in the world. He's got no production. So, and I'm a big production guy. I don't see how you can draft a guy that doesn't have production, at that high. Take him in the second round, it's a different story. Take him in the third round, it's a different story. in the first round, he better have some freaking production that you're banking on.
Yeah, I would agree with that. That's a great name to put out. Let's see. And then scrolling down a little further, Mike Green is similar. Well, he's had good production. You see the 17 sacks, two passes defended, 84 tackles for an edge.
He's got some character issues.
That's why he could fall, right?
How much will those character issues have an effect on where he gets drafted?
Right.
Now, he has never been charged, but he's been,
accusations?
He's accused.
Yeah.
Never been, or put it this way, they didn't have enough evidence to bring charges, but been accused basically the same thing at two different schools. So there's something there. What is it? And that's where you might hire an investigator to find out some things, and that's not unusual. So it's the team that takes him will be good with what they found out. Be that at 11 or be it at 28 or be it at 40. It's going to be whoever takes him feels good because they're going to, right away, the media is going to hammer you about that. Even they might like the pick too, but because the media being the media is going to say, well, this guy's got so-and-so. How can you take that guy?
Right. A lot of people have been talking about this kid, Kenneth Grant, out of Michigan. Him. Yeah, you love him. Now, how much does the fact that he played alongside Graham impact one way or another how you evaluate Grant?
I could switch that around. How much did Graham playing next to Grant impact Graham?
Yeah.
Because you know who Kenneth Grant is to me?
Who?
Akeem Hicks.
Oh, really? Bring him on.
And I looked. In fact, it was just yesterday. I looked up the measurables to see Grant is an inch shorter. 10 pounds heavier, 10, 12 pounds heavier at coming out of school. Grant's a 1/10 of a second faster. His arms, all the other stuff is pretty close. Grant's got long arms, but Akeem had real long arms. He had 35-inch arms. But a lot of the stuff is very, very similar. And the people that see him and remember that Lance said the same thing. This guy's only scratching the surface of how good he can be. He's like 20 years old and he's a local kid, Maryville, Indiana. So, I think he oozes talent. I mean, that's one of my favorite guys in this draft. That's a guy I'd trade back for, put it that way, but that's me. The Bears might not lock him for all I know.
What are your thoughts on James Pierce? A lot of people on social media have been really praying that Pierce becomes a Chicago Bear. He's the edge player from Tennessee, 6'5.5", had 7.5 sacks. What are your thoughts on him?
I think he's the best pass rusher after Carter.
Really?
Yeah, we talked about him last week.
That is true.
See, now he's got some so-called issues too. But, the worst of them that you can find, at least publicly, is, he had an arrest that got washed away like 10 days, 2 weeks later on a traffic stop. And right away you'd think University of Georgia, but he's at Tennessee. And, he might have got a little bit belligerent with the cop. I don't know exactly what happened, but, he was like 19 at the time. Is that really a big deal? Because again, got to do your research. And then he's a defensive lineman. He is going to have some crap in his neck. You better have some crap in his neck. It's the nature of the position. So, it's none of the stuff, at least as far as I can find, is anywhere near as bad as Jalen Carter was. Mm-hmm. I told you, I've said it 2 or 3 times on here. One guy who was a scouting director for an NFC team told me, well, he goes, the way he was described to me is he's a wild horse that just won't get broke.
Okay.
Um,
Maybe you don't want him broke, is what you said last week.
well, no, I mean, so does that mean is he tough to coach?
Uh-huh.
So that's a guy that you got, if you have interest in, you bring in on that 30 visit and you spend a lot of time with him and you get a feel good or a feel against, the one way or the other after you bring him in, and you better have, if there are some issues, and again, we're not going to know exactly what all the issues are. The teams are going to know a lot more than we are. So it's once they get a feel good and they say, okay, we're going to take him. Tank Johnson, perfect thing. We said, okay, we'll take him. First round talent, we waited till the second round. But I mean, that could be the same type of thing. But I think he's just too talented not to go in the first round. It's where does he go? I mean, to me, he'd be in play at 10 on his talent, but they got to say we're okay with him. And you got to have, I started saying, I didn't finish it. You got to have strong people in the locker room, in his position group, to help bring him along. And that's where Philly was the perfect place for Genty. They had Cox there, they had Graham there. And so they had some really strong veterans that were good people, strong character, good leaders that could help bring a young guy who was a little off center,
right.
Keep him close to the vest. Where now, the Bears got Grady Jarrett, and Billings is pretty good too. You got a few more people in that room that maybe you can do it now that you couldn't do it 2 years ago.
Outstanding. Now, Ken Johnson wants to know, is Pierce too light at 245?
I think he'll end up being 260. He's strong. There's one play I saw where he gets into a tackle and just, remember the play Green did with Connerly at the Senior Bowl?
Sure do. Yeah.
Okay. Well, the same thing as that, but with a guy that had, he wasn't off balance when he hit him. He just drove his ass into the ground. I mean, he's got some snap in his hips. He's a powerful guy, and he'll probably play, 252, 253 as a rookie. You look at some of those, like Will Anderson was only like 248. Now he's probably closer to 260 once you get into the league. So it's not a problem.
Getting back to Kenneth Grant, Kevin wants to know, do you think Grant is, drafting him at 10 would be too much of a reach?
Well, that's the thing, is every player is about the same. Who said it's a reach?
Right.
Right. I mean, so it's where is he on the Bears board? I like him a lot. It wouldn't be hard for me to say yes, but it could be hard for Ryan Poles to say yes because they may have a different grade on him.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It makes total sense. Absolutely. I mean, it is similar to Penix, right? Penix with the Falcons last year. He was drafted in the top 10, and a lot of people said, well, that's ridiculous. He was on my board down in the 20s, maybe even in the 30s and 40s. But the Falcons saw great value, and I think he was picked 8th, a couple of picks before the Bears. So I think that's a good example. Now,
Knicks was the same thing. Knicks went at 12 to Denver.
Absolutely.
Okay, and then what are they taking? You can get him in the third round. Well, he might have been the second best quarterback in the class last year.
Right. Getting back to Pierce, Squeegee wants to rephrase the question. It says, can Pierce Jr. set the edge?
Yes.
All right. No problem there.
No ifs, ands, or buts. When you see him do it, they can do it.
All right. AW, wants to know, have you looked at Joshua Farmer from FSU at defensive tackle? He looks like a guy Poles would draft in around round 3, 35-inch arms.
He's a good football player.
Yeah.
He's one of those guys that you might get to the third pick. He's a guy that would be like, if you like Grant, then you'd like this guy, but you're getting a little lesser player.
Makes sense.
So but the same type of guy, a big anchor in the middle.
Yeah.
This guy's probably got a little more quickness than Grant does. At least on tape he looks like that. But I just, I was just putting it together about Grant saying, who's he remind me of? Because I don't like doing comps much. And then it just hit me. That's freaking Akeem Hicks.
Right. Oh, that's a great comp. I'm going to look into that more. Jason Squires wants to know, who is the best pass rusher at number 10? I'm going to put up Tankathon's big board on their pass rushers and have you comment on them.
But see, it's what everything we've been talking about today.
Right.
The best pass rusher at 10 is Pierce.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but do you take him at 10? Or it could, Mykel Williams is pretty damn good too. But Mykel Williams didn't run good.
Right.
He didn't run bad, but he ran like 4.74. You'd rather he be on the, the better side, the good side of 4.7. Now he is running again on April 18th because the other guy is working out that day, the other linebacker, and he hasn't worked out yet. So he could very well run a 4.65 that day. And then you like him that much more. But those two would probably be the guys at that point. But that's why I say, why not trade back a little bit? I just know if it's me, I'm starting to lay a foundation this week at the owners' meetings. Just little talk. We might be thinking of trading back. Nothing in stone. By the way, it was at the owners' meeting that the foundation for the trade with Carolina was made, and it was made that following week. But he got together with Scott, and they did some of the groundwork during these owner meetings. Those go on through Wednesday. You turned off your mic again.
Hey, do it again. Would you, Gabriel, consider trading out of the first round and acquiring multiple picks in the second and third and potentially even a first or second rounder into 2026 draft?
Offhand, no. I mean, there's too many good players. What's the deal? You'd have to. You can't just say, "Would you do this?" and say, "Yeah, no." Well, what's the deal?
Right. Well, let me see. I got a deal here. Let me see if I can find it real quick. This the
one with the Colts.
No. This is my own. My own. Let me put this up like this, and let me see if I still have it here. Yeah, I think I do. Here it is. All right. So the Browns, they get our 10th overall pick. We pick up their 33rd overall pick, top of the second round. Their third round pick, the 67th pick, another third round pick that they have, the 94th, and their 2026 first round draft pick. Would you entertain that?
I'd have to see where that comes out on the chart before I'd even think about it.
Yeah, I actually, it's always difficult to account points for the first round pick.
There's a premium paid a little bit because you're waiting until next year.
Right, exactly. So it might reduce that first round pick to a second rounder. Even then, a second round pick in the 2026 draft.
Well, I don't know if you might have to get more than a 26-1. Let me. I don't have the chart up here. Let me see if I can get it on this.
Sure thing. The reason I proposed that is. Greg, you mentioned that the Bears want to get faster at the linebacker position, and there aren't, at the top of this draft, there aren't a lot of speedy linebackers with length. And so I started thinking about the safety named Nick Emenwari. You know, this guy's length, and he could play the box. He could really help out in that run game.
Yeah, but I know where you're going, and my only answer to that is, but can he play linebacker?
Can he play that third safety? So, you know, it's almost like an Urlacher spot where you drop him down to linebacker on running downs, and then you...
Well, you're saying he's a nickel then. And then you already got your nickel and Gordon.
Gordon, correct, right. If you were to play him down,
I see him as a really good safety. I can't say he can't be a linebacker. Right. But I can't say he's going to be either, because the way teams played, you got like basically two inside linebackers, and then you got your nickel.
Right.
Okay, so that means you're putting him, you know, in between the tackles somewhere in your base defense.
I see him, like you'll see him in this clip here, how he is defending against the run, coming out of that safety spot.
I know he's a good player. I really like him.
Yeah, he's a dynamite player. I'd love to see him on the Bears, and if we can get him in a trade by trading back and acquiring another early round draft pick or two, that would be sensational. Let me kill that. And you were searching for?
Yeah, I'm just pulling it up right now. So what are the picks?
Let me see. It's
Chicago's picks were 1,300 points.
Right.
So you're saying 33, right?
33.
That's 580 points right there.
All right. 580. Got it.
Okay. So, and then you're saying what else?
The 67th pick.
Okay. That's 255. So that's 580, 680, 780.
830.
Yeah, 830. And what else?
The 94th pick.
That's another 124.
90. So 8, 9, 30, 10, 1080.
1080. And you need just, I mean, if it was doing this year, you need 13, you need 800 points theoretically to do that trade, but you're taking yourself out of the first round.
Right.
You know, so I mean, could they? Yeah, would they? I would tend to say no. Mm-hmm. Part of the reason being you're saying no to that fifth year option that has some value to it also.
Yeah. Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. You made a good point earlier in the show, is that with all of these players being evenly graded, we could see a lot more scenarios where people are going to trade up, trade down to get the player that they like.
That's how I personally feel that's what's going to happen. Yeah. You're going to be looking for specific players, and you're going to might have to do something to get them.
Okay. All right, let's tackle some more questions here. I think we got that one already. You know, Florida Bears fan, I want to make sure to include this. He says that the flashes that you're getting on your screen is because of your magnetic personality.
Okay.
When have you heard that before?
Whatever that's supposed to mean.
You got a magnetic personality.
I don't know what a magnetic personality is.
It means that you attract people. That's the reason why we got over 600 people watching live across our 3 platforms.
Well, that's terrific. My doctor still hasn't send the thing back. Yeah, what the hell?
He better. Kenworth offers another compliment. He says, "Thank you so much for your football wisdom. I know you don't like mock drafts, but where do you see each team drafting for the top 10? I know it's premature, but love your insight." I'm not sure I understand that question.
Well, he wants to know who I see as the top 10 players going, and
Okay.
in this, like last year, even look at last year's a perfect example. Who the hell saw 5 quarterbacks go in the top 10, 6 go in the top 12?
Right.
So it's crazy. And I think guys that you see are top 10 players are going to go in the teams.
Yeah.
Or maybe even later. And that's going to be a lot different than I think most mock drafts are going to, people are going to look at them and say, what the hell were they thinking? And nothing against those guys. It's just that's the way I think this draft is very unique because of that.
Yeah, this is Tankathon's mock draft. They've got Ward, Carter, Sanders to the Giants, Hunter, Graham, Genty, Membu, McMillan, Will Johnson, and then Will Campbell.
See, I don't see McMillan going in the top 10.
Yeah, a lot of people are saying that
because he didn't run good enough. Where's the special?
Yeah. And his love of the game kind of questions that
he ran like 4.52, 4.53.
Yeah. Very, very difficult to predict the drafts. When do you follow one particular person because they have done a good job of forecasting the draft and getting picks correct? Getting 20 out of 32 picks correct. Is there anyone that you like to follow?
No. Okay. I just look at guys I trust as because they got good connections. So it's
right
where, about where do they see these guys? And DJ's as good as anybody. And then you'll get into day 2 and you'll see how many guys he had his first rounders are still there.
Right.
So the teams are always different than the analysts.
Mm-hmm. Ken says, given needs, I bet Poles wants to trade down. He needs 8 positions: defensive tackle, defensive end, offensive line, running back, safety, linebacker, tight end, wide receiver. You can't count on the 7th rounders making this team. So he may want to trade down. Your thoughts?
Well, I don't know. I mean, tight end, I think is.
They need a third.
I don't know if it's a big need. I mean, if Warren would have worked out, I would feel a lot better about him, but that he didn't do anything. It just bothers me. And when they don't do anything, I mean, not one measurable drill, the first thing that comes to my mind, and has been this way for the last 40 years, what's he trying to hide?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, I got to believe is that players, particularly now where players feel more emboldened to question authority, that player, Warren, must have questioned his scout's choice. Unless, of course, there is something to hide. He's got an injury. He's got something going on.
Or don't forget, when these guys are in training, they're getting timed a lot. He already knows what he can run.
Yeah, right.
Okay? Yeah. He knows what he can jump. He knows what he can do a 3-cone in. So, yeah, do I think negative about that? Yeah, because what's the phrase we use? Guys who don't can't.
And those that can't teach Jim.
I'm not going to run 4.7 when you think I'm going to be a 4.6.
Yeah, right. Would you be surprised if Loveland went up before Warren?
Well, he's coming off an injury too. So what's the injury?
Yeah. Yeah.
I love Warren's tape. His tape is really good.
Uh-huh.
But I don't think he's a burner tight end. I think he's a mid 4.6 guy, which is pretty good speed for a tight end. He's 250 pounds. But I got nothing. I don't have, because a lot of times, the speed and the jumps, a fast guy will jump high. He'll have a good vert. He'll have a good broad jump because he's got explosiveness in his lower body. The 3-cone 20 shuttle, that's flexibility, burst, pure athleticism. So, but they each tell us a little something. Okay, so even if you got a couple of them, okay, like most good players, most fast guys want to run because they know they're fast. And you could use that, like the kid that last year from Texas who set the record. And he said, well, you don't have to run a second time. You just ran a 4.24. Yeah, but the record's 4.23. I got to beat it, or 4.22. And so you like that competition because you could see his mindset right there, wanting to run that second time because he's got that competitiveness. Hey, I don't even want to run. I know I can run fast, but I want to be the fastest guy.
Right. Well, Creighton is pointing out that Warren has a private workout scheduled with the Bears. Now, this is being reported by somebody who you don't trust, Tony Pauline.
That's right. That guy is so full of shit. Leming had it on his X account, and Pauline or whatever. I mean, he's, you go through the years, you find out he's not even batting 500.
A lot of guesswork, it appears to be. Kenworth is writing.
I mean, if I can find out who the agent is, and if it's an agent I know, I can find out. But, I don't know who the agent is.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe we'll do some research there.
Well, I'll put a call into Mike when we're done and see if Mike knows.
Cool. Kenworth says, Gabriel, maybe Warren isn't hiding anything. The film shows his versatility. Maybe he's gun shy and making a mistake. Would his agent encourage not taking that chance? I can't imagine Warren's going to be gun shy about anything.
No, I just go on what history tells me. And when guys don't do anything, it's usually, number one, it's agent driven. See, the agent, and I'll go back, they've been practicing this.
Yeah.
And so the agent, he's thinking, well, you might be a top 10 pick. And if you run, then, I'm thinking the negative here. So if you run, there goes our top 10.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll just let you sit it all out. And then hopefully you still go in the top 10. And then, of course, that team makes a mistake because they're not buying what they thought they were buying.
Right.
And he still may turn out to be a great player. But, I mean, Travis Kelce was he wasn't a 4.6 guy. He was a 4.71.
Yep. All right. Arnie asks, Bears gave a 25th fourth-round pick to move up to pick Austin Booker. How does he stack up compared to those middle-round edge players in this year's draft? Hard to say, right?
Yeah, I mean, I love the move when they did it because you like the player.
Right.
And, the fact that they sent him with Jarrett, Sweat, and one other guy to that pass rush school, that tells you a little that the new staff likes him too. So the guy's got a lot of talent. So I have no problem with that. In fact, it was funny. I was thinking about that earlier today. As if, what if you had that? But, last year, don't forget, they had to get an edge and they had no more picks. Turn your mic on.
I did. A little late, though. Screechies says, which move would you think makes the defensive line more formidable? A blue-chip defensive tackle next to Jarrett or a blue-chip defensive end next to Billings? Ode Bingo and company, or something else.
Let me read that again. Blue chip. Well, I think they need. I think they need another anchor.
Yep,
not to necessarily play next to Billings, but play in a rotation with Billings. And I go back to that first presser, and I've mentioned this several times. The one thing that jumped out, because he never talked about any other position really besides that, he said, when they lost Billings, it was real noticeable. And so right away it said, yep, that's one position to get. You got to get another guy in there. So if you lose Billings, you don't have that big hole.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I will say this. Let me do this first of all on the screen. I will say this. Now, he did say that, he being Ben Johnson, did say that in his introductory press conference.
Right.
So there's a possibility that he has seen a lot of tape and has gathered more information about Billings' injury and the state of perhaps Billings' mind, because there are stories there that Billings is thinking about, maybe calling it quits, maybe looking at it.
I haven't heard that. Where'd you hear that?
Well, over on the Barfly Tailgate show, one of the co-hosts, Brian Kirkland Billings, is related to Anthony Billings, and so there's he kind of dropped that, not as a fact but as speculation. So there is that in the air, so to speak. And at his age, Billings and the nose tackle takes all of that hitting and stuff. I could potentially see him playing one more season and out, or maybe not even playing this season.
Well, he's making over $3 million this year. I can't see anybody walking away from $3 million when you're able to play.
Yeah,
and
I agree with that.
And actually, he was having his best season last year, and the injury wasn't a contact injury; he tore a pec.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that's an exertion injury.
Right. J2K, Greg, do you think Ben Johnson changes some of the Pose's draft philosophies, like, for instance, offensive tackle with short arms or character issue prospects?
Why would you take an off? I mean, length of tackle is imperative across the board. Okay, they had their left tackle, Detroit, had 33 3/4 inch arms, more than an inch longer than Campbell has.
Yeah. So highly unlikely. I mean, this is a situation.
I mean, hey, could they take the guy? Yeah, and then play him at guard, because okay, perfect example. Remember Zach Martin at Notre Dame?
Sure.
Somebody else brought this up the other day. Zach Martin was a 4-year starter, never missed a game at Notre Dame. Went middle of the first round to Dallas. You know how long he played tackle at Dallas?
13 years? No, 0 years.
Not one practice.
That's right.
Okay, he was put at left guard right away and is going into the Hall of Fame as a left guard. How long were his arms? 32.5 inches.
Yeah. Well, and the thing about those players is because they have tackle experience, they're bringing them in to play guard, but know that in a pinch, you can move them outside, and they've got some experience if somebody gets injured during the game.
Zach had to play 2 or 3 games at tackle during the course of his career because Tyron Smith was hurt and somebody else got hurt, and so they had to put somebody out there. He's going to hold the fort.
Right.
But where was Skoronski too? Everybody loved Skoronski 2 years ago, correct?
Correct.
From Northwestern. Okay, and Tennessee took him. What pick did he go in, the teens? It's like the second offensive lineman taken.
Yeah, right.
Played tackle his whole career at Northwestern. Where is he at Tennessee? He's at left guard.
Very interesting. And J2K points out that Campbell and Connerly, both with 33-inch arms, are scheduled for top 30 visits. Seems odd we'd be bringing in.
That Campbell top 30 visit is in question. There's like one person said it, nobody else has said it. I'm not going to say he's not coming, but people who check that really closely don't have it.
Interesting.
Genty, everybody's got Genty. Not everybody's got Campbell.
Interesting. Do the Bears ever officially release their top 30 visits?
No, usually the agent does.
So it's
no. You don't want. I mean, you got to release it to the league,
right?
Okay, and sometimes you got to, for just making travel easier. We used to do this all the time. Like if somebody we wanted to see a guy in Green Bay, wanted to see a guy, we might fly him here. And then, so we take care of the flight here and the flight up to Green Bay, and Green Bay take the flight home, or vice versa. You'd start at Green Bay, then come down here and over. So you just work together to make so he doesn't have to keep going to the same area.
Gotcha.
And you do them like back-to-back days, and teams work together on that stuff all the time.
Right.
Same thing with say Detroit, because that's not far away. Okay, go visit you on Tuesday and Detroit on Wednesday. Fine. And that, so the team, that a lot of times the teams know who's coming in, but they don't necessarily want the public to know.
Right.
But you're also, some guys you bring in, like I said, I brought in a quarterback that we had rejected, and we even had him do a press conference. Why? Throw everybody off.
You guys are so wily. All right, next question, Greg. I've been wondering about this too. Do you think they're waiting to extend Tooney until after the draft in case they draft a Will Campbell or replace him in a year potentially? Could Tooney be a 1-year rental? No, they paid too much for that. No, when I just know because I know the agent, and the story behind that is, I think I mentioned it before, when Poles was talking to the GM from Kansas City, Poles told him that I'll probably extend him. He told, Brett Veach told the media that, we're making this trade and he's probably going to get extended. You notice right after the trade was made, they said expect an extension pretty soon. That came from Veach, not from Poles, but Veach got it from Poles. Okay.
They just haven't done it yet. And they don't have to do it yet. So he's 32. Guy's missed like one game in his whole career.
Right.
He's been the epitome of durability. And he doesn't turn 33 into November. So, you want to do an extension, bring his cap number down, but you don't want to extend him more than another 2 years. So he's playing at 32, 33, 34.
Right. Well, it's interesting, Greg, because of the 3 interior linemen, offensive linemen that Poles has brought in this offseason, Tooney is by far the best. At least
he's not a Pro Bowl. He's an All-Pro.
Exactly. So you would think that that's kind of the no-brainer, is to try to have him extended so that quarterback Caleb Williams then has that continuity with at least one guy in the offensive line. Now, I personally feel that Drew Dahlman might be the most important acquisition of the offseason just because of the center's responsibilities.
Right.
But the riskiest acquisition is right guard Jonah Jackson because of what happened last year. And is that a signal that perhaps, he's not going to play as well as he used to in Detroit? So signing Tooney is of high priority to me.
Well, I can say this from what I know, and that is up until the day he had his, came to Chicago, took his physical, passed the physical, the trade was official, and he had a little pressure. Up until that day, there was no discussion between Poles and the agent. Since then, I don't know because I haven't asked.
Yeah. Somebody, who was it that asked that question about Tooney's arm length because he played tackle last year for the Chiefs, but that doesn't matter. He was an emergency replacement.
Well, they didn't have a tackle. He has like 32 and a quarter inch arms.
Right. Kenworth is asking the difference between the Pro Bowler and All Pro. Go ahead, Greg.
Well, I mean, they're both voted on, but the Pro Bowl is more of a contest.
Right.
Okay. He was first team All Pro, which means one of the top 2 guards in the league.
Yeah. Exactly. When
And you got 6 guards in the Pro Bowl.
Right. When you're all pro, you're picking AFC and NFC guys, and
Together.
you're the absolute
He's been in the last few years. He's been a first team and second team All Pro.
right. You won't see a Mitch Trubisky as an All Pro. You'll see Mitch Trubisky in a Pro Bowl. That's the difference there. All right. Let's see. The Scrolls is asking, I'm confused. Is Will Campbell deformed? Is his arms disproportionately shorter than most humans? So when we're talking about a quarter of an inch, 3/4 of an inch, an inch, 2
Well, don't
inches.
forget, everybody goes 33. 33 is the freaking minimum now.
Right.
Okay, compared to guys like Braxton Jones and Amagaji, they got 2.5, 3 inches on them.
Right. Now, is the league perhaps changing? Because I think it was Lance Zierlein on this show who said, more and more teams are kind of bypassing arm length. And I heard Field Yates over at ESPN say something similar, that for some teams, it's becoming less and less important. Have you heard the same thing? And if so, what is your opinion?
I know that, you don't make as big a deal about it interior as you do tackle.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I've said all along, whoever drafts him will probably try him at left tackle first. And then if that doesn't work, they're going to move him inside.
Right. So, and I think that's the key. Like J2K kept challenging the idea of the arm length and why are they bringing in Josh Connerly and other prospects who are offensive tackles but have shorter arms.
I think Connerly's a guard too. He just,
yeah.
Look at his body. Just looking at his body, but he can play either. He's another guy. Try a tackle first, and then if he fails, and when you're bringing in, don't forget you're bringing guys in for potential second round, potential trade downs. There's all different reasons why you bring guys in.
Sometimes you're thinking about the possibility of them becoming a free agent.
Hey, they brought in Booker last year. They took him in the 5th round.
Perfect example. Excellent. Hey, I'm going to put up Tankathon's big board on tackles, and just to get your comments on some of these players, and do you see them playing tackle in the NFL? Campbell, we've talked at length about him. You think he's going to probably move inside. What about Armin Membu? Can you see him?
I think he'd be a all-pro, Pro Bowl type guard.
Uh-huh.
What he'd be as a tackle. He's marginal height, length to be a tackle. I'm not saying he can't do it, and he might be very good at it. And I'd try him there first. But if the Bears hadn't signed or traded for Jackson, he'd be the guy I'd want them to draft at 10 to play right guard.
I am so with you on that one. Absolutely. No chance at all about taking a look at him at left tackle?
Well, he's never played it,
Right.
So now it's harder to go from the right side to the left side than it is the left side to the right side.
Right.
I can't say that it can't be done, but he's never played it. So you got a question mark there right off the bat. So who knows? You try him there and work there and see what happens.
Yeah. All right. Kelvin Banks is a guy, as Field Yates said in a recent podcast, that guy was a top 10 pick after the 2023 season, but he has dropped considerably in the minds of some. Tankathon has him as the 16th best prospect. Your thoughts on Kelvin Banks, and will he be inside, outside? Your thoughts?
I think he'll end up being a guard.
Really?
He's you look at his tape this year, it wasn't that good. I mean, it was okay.
Yeah.
And you try him at tackle, and you're probably going to have a winning tackle. I don't think you're going to have a Pro Bowler. Another guy that's built like a guard, but when he got against really good competition this year, now granted, he got hurt, missed like 2 or 3 games. And then when he came back, he just didn't look like himself. But his play, I remember having a text conversation with Dane Brugler about us too. He goes, everybody's got him high. He goes, I don't see it. And I don't see it either,
Yep.
because you see him get beat too often.
Yep.
But I think, you move those guys like that inside, and they're great inside, because then they don't have to play on that island that a left tackle does.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not going to say he can't do it. I just think he might be better inside. But it's really going to be up to the team that takes him, and then go from there.
One of the other things that Brugler said is that he sees Banks on the ground too much for his taste. And so that to me is...
I hate groundhogs.
I love that. Groundhogs. Josh Simmons is a mystery, because he had those first 6 games at Ohio State where he played like a top 5 pick in the NFL draft. But then he got injured. And then when you search further, is his first year at Ohio State was so-so, and his first year at San Diego State, which is where he played first.
Well, there's some what's the guy, Bob McGinn?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, Bob puts a thing out on players and talks about guys with a character stuff. And I've known Bob a long time, and he's got his connections around the league are as good as anybody's. He killed this guy.
Yeah.
Just killed him. And I'm not saying he's right, because sometimes he's wrong. Simmons has got marginal length. And I'm going to admit it, I'm a big length guy, especially a tackle. Probably has the ability to be the best left tackle, but I don't know how healthy he is. They were raving, I'm going to be able to work out at my pro day. What did he do? The bench press.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't work out. He did the bench press. So, right off the bat, I told you, Drew Rosenhaus has a way of doing that all the time. Oh yeah, we're going to do this. He tries to, and I love Drew. He's a good guy, but you gotta, he's trying to sell his guy, which that's his job. But hey, he had a torn patella tendon. It is a difficult injury to come back with. Sometimes it can take as much as a year, but it's usually minimum 8 months, and it depends on each person, because you're going to have, some people are going to heal faster than others. And so then I come up with, okay, you had a wasted year with a 3rd-round pick last year because he had an injury. You're going to do it again this year.
That's amazing. And going on with this list, by the way, Campbell, Membo, Banks, the first 3 people on Tankathon's list are as offensive tackles. You are projecting that they're going to play interior offensive line.
I think they can play
NFL.
tackle, but I think they may be better inside. Same thing, Josh Connerly. But Josh Connerly, I know, can play tackle. He played tackle at a high level at Oregon. He's a real solid 2nd-round pick. I'm not Ariante Ursary fan at all.
I remember you once saying about him that he is stiffer than a virgin on his wedding night. Than a virgin's dick on his wedding night. Excuse me.
Savanea, or whatever his name is a guard. He's 6'3.5".
I love that guy's attitude. He's got.
I do too. Good player.
Recruits, Polynesian. By the way, look at Kenworth coming through with a $20 donation.
All
Thank you so
right.
much for the show. I listen all the time. Love your laugh and humor, Aldo. I love Greg's wisdom and insight. Could use his help to read my wife's mind. Bring her on the show, Kenworth. Thank you very much.
Embo is a guard. He's not tall enough to be a tackle. Cameron Williams is a right tackle, and it'd be a decent right tackle. Wyatt Milam played left tackle at West Virginia. He's got 32-inch arms. He's going to be a guard. And it's not even 32.5. It's 32.
Wow.
So, he's got real short arms. He'll be a guard. Cornelius is a right tackle. Pretty decent one. Jonah Monheim is a center, and he's got 30-inch arms.
Yeah.
30.5-inch arms.
Jeez, that's
they're
ridiculous.
Like tiny.
He's definitely going to play center. I'm not sure.
Emory Jones is another guy, right tackle. I I don't know why. He might have had a surgery after the combine. I don't want to say that unless I'm really exact, but he did not. Campbell and Emory Jones did not work out at the LSU Pro Day.
Wow.
The other day. The two interior guys were the only offensive linemen that worked.
Greg, go ahead.
Logan Brown at Kansas, right tackle or guard. Monheim's a center. Charles Grant's an interesting guy. He's raw.
Yeah.
He's got the athleticism that you want for left tackle. But the tape says he's gonna need a year. He's gonna have to sit for a year, and by year 2, you're hoping that I don't think his tape at where do you go, Richmond or William and Mary, I don't think his tape was as good as Amagaji's tape at Yale.
Yeah. Interesting. Greg, when you look at this entire list, it seems like there's only maybe 6, 7 guys.
I said this is a left tackle draft, and they're not there. I mean, yeah, they got some guys they'll try, and you might have to make do with them.
Right.
But it's a right tackle interior line draft.
Wow. Now, I got to ask you this question. There was a picture of Braxton Jones' feet that he posted on his Instagram account, and he said that he had removed the walking boot. Greg.
That was about a week and a half ago.
Right. So it really worries me that at this point of 2025, in March, mid-March, it's when the walking boot is. Do you think that could be an issue in terms of training and getting better at defending the bull rush when your ankle still is not 100% in March?
No.
Why?
Because that's what happens with guys who have end of the year surgeries, and a lot of times they're not full go during the off-season program. They're lifting and doing some stuff, and by camp they'll be ready. I could say, okay, this is middle of March. So you got middle of March when we got boot off. So middle April, May, June, July. He's got 4.5 months before camp starts. Do you know how much you improve in 4.5 months when you're, when you're in a boot, it limits your mobility. And I've been in a boot before, but hell, I had a knee replacement and I was playing golf less than 4 months after I had a knee replacement, and I'm an old man. That's just part of playing the game and doing the rehab. You do what you're supposed to do, and then every day it gets a little better than it was the day before.
You're not an old man, Greg.
Yeah, I am an old man. I know that part. My kids tell me all the time.
Oh, no.
And my grandkids.
See, I can understand a grandchild saying that because you can't run around and catch them anymore. Scroll says, Amagaji could very well be our future left tackle, but the meatballs trench tards want more beef at left tackle.
What's wrong with his beef?
Yeah, Amagaji is
6'5.5", 323 pounds.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It shouldn't be. I always want to entertain what Cocaine Bear is saying. Let's see what he's got here. Jaden Daniels mastered Cliff's offense in preseason last year. Jaden's IQ and memory is elite. As a rookie, he didn't even wear a wristband with plays on it. That's not true. He memorized the playbook. Jaden Daniels is very smart, but
Jaden Daniels was playing the LSU offense at Washington last year. That's already been mentioned.
Yeah,
they went back to what he knows.
Right. Yeah, that is the really the headline there regarding Jaden Daniels' magnificent rookie season is that the offensive coordinator put together that offense with Daniels in mind, really made it quarterback friendly for him, for that particular quarterback, and that's what our offensive coordinator Shane Waldron did not do for Caleb Williams.
And that's why he's gone.
Right. So
see, now part of it, you look at this and you say, well, you can piss and moan all about it, but then you wouldn't have what's going on now. Because they wouldn't have made a change, and Flus would still be the head coach, and you'd still be treading water, for lack of a better term, right?
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
there's a lot of good that comes out of bad,
Right.
or hopefully a lot of good that comes out of bad.
It better be this season, or we're going to be very, very upset. AW wants to know your thoughts on defensive end Jordan Birch out of
Really
Oregon.
like him.
Yeah, it could
He
be
is
available early during
he
day
is
3.
a mother.
I love it.
No, he's got a nasty way about him. I like the way he plays the game.
Love it. You know, there appear to be some edge rushers in this draft who could be day 3 steals, guys that have a lot of potential, and you know their ceiling is a lot higher than some people might think. You agree with that?
A guy like that, I got a 3rd round grade on that guy.
Uh-huh.
You know, that doesn't mean he's going there. I mean, he's real productive. Now, he played at South Carolina and then went out to Oregon, played 1 year, and didn't miss a beat. The guy's a hell of a player. And for a guy as big as he is, he can really move.
Yeah, he can. Here's the big board from Tankathon, and just scrolling down to 63, you got Princely Manamilan. Jordan Birch is at 64. This kid Braden Swinson reminds me a lot. Yeah, reminds me a lot of.
I'll tell you a story. So I do him for one of the agents.
Yep.
And I knew nothing about him. And this might have been in October sometime. Uh-huh. They probably had, 5 or 6 games under their belt. So I'm watching this guy and I'm like, wow. I put a 1st round grade on him. He was the most complete defensive end that I had done to date. In October when I did him.
Yeah.
In that he could rush the passer, play the run, set the edge, do everything you wanted. And you know what? Now he's starting to get a lot of play. If you heard, not 1st round, but you're getting a lot of 2nd round out.
Yes, lately I've hearing his name a lot.
Yeah, well, watch the tape. It speaks for itself.
Mm-hmm.
This old fart can still do a little bit of stuff.
You're not old. Stop it. J2K wants to know about JT Tuamoloa. On the surface, looks like a good fit for Dennis Allen. I'm not a fan of his play. What's your opinion on JT?
I like him. There's some people like him more.
Uh-huh.
I like the upside of the kid from Arkansas, Landon Jackson, better than this kid.
Oh, interesting.
Don't dislike him.
Uh-huh.
Just seems like something's missing. I mean, hey, if they took him in the 3rd round, I would not be upset at all. I wouldn't want him in the 2nd. He may end up going in somewhere in the 2nd. They got him there. It was the last pick in the second last pick in the 2nd round there. I like Jordan Birch better than him. I like Swinson better than him. I don't dislike them. Now, Josiah Stewart, he's like 6 foot a half inch. How many 6 foot 1/2 inch pass rushers are there in the league?
0.0.
Okay, and then the next guy, Kyle Kennard, he can rush the passer. The next time he plays the run will be the first. He doesn't play the run worth of shit.
Yeah, he's a skinny 254 pounds. I'll tell you that.
But he doesn't even put the effort into playing the run.
Really?
But he's a bitch coming off the edge now. He's pretty good.
He is. He can bend that edge. Absolutely. What about this kid from UCLA, Olawafemi Oladejo?
He's only been an edge for 1 year. He was a linebacker.
Wow. Didn't know that.
Okay, so they lost the kid who went, I can't remember his name now, went the 1st round of the Colts last year. And so they lose him and they put him on the edge and he plays pretty good.
Any thoughts on Ashton Gillott, who Kuiper really likes a lot?
He looks like a roly-poly to me. I got to do more work on him.
He's only 6'2.5".
Yeah, I know, and he's not real. I don't see him as a real explosive guy, but he's got talent. There's no question.
People in the chat are asking about Jared Ivey, the edge out of Ole Miss, 6'6", 275 pounds. He's got the size, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, but he's like, of the 4 linemen, he's like 4th at Ole Miss. And they had some pretty good linemen. And, they had 2 tackles, and one's going to be a first rounder, in the teens, maybe even higher. And in fact, Lance has got Walter Nolan, their defensive tackle, as his number 1 defensive tackle ahead of Mason.
Oh, Greg, there's almost a virtual fist fight going on in the chat room. TV17 is a huge Tyson Bagent fan, and he believes Tyson Bagent is going to be the starting quarterback of the Chicago Bears sooner rather than later. What are your thoughts on TB17's proclamation?
Somebody would have to put a bullet in Caleb Williams' head or something for that to happen. I like Tyson Bagent, but I just can't see that happening. There's one reason why Ben Johnson turned down the other jobs and came here. Don't forget, remember we had his agent on here?
Yep.
And Monday morning, their season's done Saturday. Sunday they talk, put the pros and cons of the different teams on the table and talk about them. Monday morning, Ben calls him and Rick Smith and says, call Chicago and see if you can get a deal done. Not Chicago call and try to sell you. Call Chicago and see if you can get a deal done. Not even have a live interview.
Wow.
And you know what? That was because of Caleb.
Yeah. Interesting news there. All right, Greg, what do you want to talk about next week with 3 weeks till the draft?
Well, we want to talk about trade down guys that we were going to do today, but you forgot. So that's okay.
I totally forgot. So we'll definitely focus.
Because I got a list of guys, and you know what? Some of them could go. I mean, the way this draft is, it could be flip flopped.
Yeah. Indeed. So, people, if you've got names who are day 3 prospects and you want Greg to evaluate them, please send them to me either on X at Barroom Network, and I'll collect them off for Greg, or shoot me an email.
Well, don't give them to me on Monday when I got it. I might have already done them.
Yeah, no, I'll definitely get them.
I've done 400 players, but that doesn't mean there's a lot of guys I didn't do. There's guys that I did are going to be free agents.
Absolutely. So we'll get as many of those, from Greg as he can deliver. I think it'll be an interesting topic. That will be the topic for next week's show. And then in 2 weeks, who's our guest? Greg.
Dane Brugler.
The great Dane Brugler. The Beast comes out in about 2 days. And
comes out the 9th.
Comes out the 9th. This guy is made out of money. Ken Johnson, $4.99. Thank you very, very, very much for the donation. Really appreciate it.
When Dane put out that the release was the 9th, I sent him a text right away. Can you come on the 14th at 11? So he gets back to me and he says, I already got something booked at 11. How about 11:30? I said, sold.
I love it. He's a great interview. We have a little bit of him in our opening, so we'll start at 11:30 when he's available. That way he can see himself on your open. Gabriel Talks Football right here on the Barroom Network. Thank you to the 563 people who joined us across all 3 of our platforms.
A lot. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
And thank you to all of the people who joined us in the chat room and all of the questions. A big part of the show is your contribution with your questions and comments. Really appreciate it. Greg, another great one. This has been one of my favorite shows of the off season, and we'll make it even better over the next 2-3 weeks.
Yeah, well, this is a fun time of the year for sure.
It is. By the way, what are you going to do now? Are you going to start looking at tape again?
No, right now I'm going to eat some lunch.
There you go.
No, I do. I got to get. I finished up 2 guys for Mike. I got to email out to him, and then in that email, I'm gonna ask him if he knows who Tyler Warren's agent is.
Excellent. That would be fantastic. All right. You know what? I reached out to Sean Dolak, the kid that you are very high on, the linebacker out of a small school in Michigan, I believe.
No, that's from University of Buffalo.
That's what I meant. But he hasn't responded yet. I told him, Greg really likes your tape. Would you like to come on? But I don't know if you've seen the
I don't know who his agent is either. He surprised a lot of people with his workout because he played.
Mm-hmm.
Now he's a guy who you watch the tape and you say he's a 4.75 linebacker, and so you're not going to get. Even though he led the country in tackles, 168 tackles.
Wow.
And 5 interceptions, which is a shitload of interceptions for a linebacker.
Yeah.
So, everybody has him as a free agent, and then he runs like a 4.62.
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
I hope he gets drafted late, but if not, he'll be like Sam Bourne and, make a team as a free agent.
Yep. And is that 4.62 good enough for what the Bears are looking for in terms of speed for a linebacker?
Well, Sanborn was a 4.78.
Yeah, they got rid of Sanborn.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't know. I don't know if I'll tell you off the air.
Okay, very good. And so that means that's the end of our show. Again, thank you everyone who's watched and participated. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.